All right, so for today's review, we're going to focus on two things, the quadratic formula and on complex numbers. Okay, I'm hoping this is an easy quiz because basically everything that deals with solving a quadratic has a formula you have to plug stuff in, and that's basically it. Just simplify as much as you can and you're done. And then the complex numbers is all just based on I squared being equal to -1, right? But I also made you graph and rewrite. So we're going to do a little bit of all that stuff, okay? But I think it's going to be pretty easy. Yesterday during my sixth period, I heard one of my students kind of tell their friend back there, oh my gosh, this stuff's so simple, right? They're talking about the complex numbers. So hopefully you guys felt it was easy yesterday. So I hope you guys kind of carry that on for tomorrow. So here we go. We're going to start solving, okay? And the first one is going to be a little easier than the second one. So remember, to solve, we're going to write our ABCs, right? A is 1, B is 2, C is -3. Okay? Now, you don't have to do that. I just do that because I figure, well, let me just write my ABCs because that's what I got to plug in. X is equal to, I'm going to write my formula. Again, you do not need to. I do this for the purposes of memorization, so I don't have to keep practicing this all the time. So I just write it out to make sure that I know what I'm doing. Okay? All right, now, plugging in the numbers. I think this is the most crucial part of these problems because you mess up, then everything's wrong, right? So make sure you take your time, do this right. Negative of a b, which is 2, plus or minus the square root of b squared, that's 2 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is -3. All that divided by 2 times a, which is 2 times 1. So again, that's the most crucial part, I think. If you do that right, your chances of getting the problem correct start to go up, okay? Now, be careful with your multiplication. Obviously, you guys have calculators. Use them if you need to. So x is equal to -2 plus or minus the square root of 2 squared is 4. And now let's multiply -4 times 1 times -3. That's a positive 12. Okay, over 2. So -4 times 1 times -3 is a positive 12. Okay, so let me highlight that. That way at least you guys know where that came from, okay? Because I did get a question from first period. They said, like, where'd you get that 12 from? So I just wanted to show you guys. So here you go. X is equal to -2 plus or minus the square root of 16 divided by 2. So normally this is where you would stop because you're like, oh, there is no square root to 16. But actually there is, right? It's 4, yeah. So x is equal to -2 plus or minus 4 over 2. So that means you basically got to give me the two actual answers now, okay? Because you could add those two together. You can't subtract them. So let's do the addition first, okay? Let's try to do this in our heads. You could reduce if you want to, but since the numbers are easy enough now, you could just wait. Yeah, but yeah, you could totally reduce it to a -1 plus or minus 2, and that should be okay. But I usually, once I see normal numbers, I just do it later. So here we go. -2 plus 4, what is that?
2.
2 divided by 2
1.
is 1, right? Now let's do the minus part. -2 minus 4.
6.
-6. Divide that by 2.
-3.
All right, and there we go. We're done. Okay? So those are easier because the numbers work out nicely. Okay? Sometimes they don't work out nicely, and you actually require less work to do those, but people feel scared because things aren't breaking down. So we'll get to one of those right now. Here's one of those. This one is a little bit more on the difficult side. I don't think it's terrible, especially if you have a good calculator, okay? If you have a good calculator, if you don't know if your calculator is good enough to do these, use one of my black ones, okay? I have 20 of those, okay? If yours works just fine, you know that it can reduce radicals, then great. But if yours can't do it, use one of the black ones that I have. I think even the gray ones that I have work too. So here we go. ABCs. So my A is 2, my B, -6, my C, -3. Formula. x is equal to negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. Again, none of the stuff that I just wrote is required. I just like to do it because, like I told you guys, I'm a little OCD about my math. I like things to be organized. So if I can keep everything organized, the chances of me messing up get really small. Okay? So, negative b, which is negative 6. Right now you can see the importance of me using parentheses when I plug things in. Because minus a negative is a positive. That's going to be a positive 6. Okay? Square root of negative 6 squared minus 4 times a, which is 2, times c, which is negative 3. All of that gets divided by 2 times a, which is 2 times 2. All right? So again, that's the key part right there. You can easily mess up on any one of those numbers and all your answers wrong. And you won't know it. Okay? So just be careful. Take your time. All right, minus a negative 6, that's a 6, plus or minus. The square root of negative 6 squared is 36. And negative 4 times 2, that's negative 8, times negative 3 is a positive 24. So I'll highlight that again. All of this, when you multiply it out, becomes a positive 24. All right? And then this is 4 on the bottom. So we're going to start simplifying as much as we can. We're going to start off with the radical. That's a 60 inside. Now, if you have one of those calculators that I told you that can actually do this by punching it in, but if your calculator will get a radical 60 and spit out the actual reduced form, then perfect. But if you don't have that, then you got to think, okay, two numbers that equal to 60, but one of them has a square root, 4 times 15. Because 4 has a square root of 2. And the square root of 15, you cannot simplify anymore to get square roots out of it. Okay? Now, again, if you have a calculator that can, you literally type in square root 60 and it says 2 radical 15, perfect. You don't have to worry about doing that by hand. If you don't have one that can do that, I have some. Okay? So just ask. And if you think yours might be able to do it, but it's not working, tell me and I'll clear the memory and I'll make sure that we have everything working the way it's supposed to. And then I'll tell you whether or not it'll work. So, all right, here we go. X is equal to 6 plus or minus 2 radical 15 over 4. Now here's the part kind of like you said, Jesper, about can I reduce, right? Can I bring down numbers? We have a 6, a 2, and a 4. All of those can be divided by 2, right? I can reduce them by 2. So this will be 3 plus or minus 1 radical 15 over 2. Now at this point we're done. Okay, we are completely done. For a quiz that I give you, you can give me this and I'm happy with it. Now on a state test, they probably want you to write both answers, so you're just going to have to split them up in a plus and a minus. Excuse me. So 3 plus square root of 15 over 2. 3 minus square root of 15 over 2. And that would be the correct answer as well. Okay, so that's going to be the same answer as well. It's just split up. Okay, after all, I'll take it back up. Any questions on that one?
When you do it, like when you break it up plus or minus, do you want you to make the radical decimal, or do you just leave it as that?
Just leave it like that, but that's a good question because there's going to be one question on your test where they're going to say, give me the decimal answer. Okay? So there's going to be one question on your test where they're going to say, oh, you got those two answers right there? Give me the decimal answer. So you're going to have to do 3 plus radical 15, then divide that by 2, and it's going to give you a decimal solution. And then you do 3 minus radical 15 and divide that by 2. Okay? So yeah. But for here, don't put decimals. Leave it like that. All right. Now, Here's an FYI, because I think the question that's going to ask you to do it in decimals is going to look similar to this. So this real quick FYI that I have right here is just to remind you, you cannot use this formula if your problem looks like that.
Is it going to be problem that look like that?
There's going to be one for sure. One for sure. So you have to set it equal to 0. That means you're going to have to move this over. So you want to rewrite it like this. Once you have it like that, then you have your ABCs, right? And then you can plug it in. If you don't do it that way, then you can mess up your ABCs and things will go wrong.
So the x goes in front of the, like, the
Yeah.
one on the right goes in the middle?
Well, remember, the x squared should be first, the x term should be in the middle, and the number should always be in the end. Yeah, so squared term first, then first power, then no variable. And there will be one like that, and the one that makes you do that, I think they're going to ask you for decimal answers. So you're going to definitely need a calculator. All right, so complex numbers. Now we can try to make them really complicated and stuff, but there's no need. I just need you guys to understand one main thing. I squared is equal to what? I squared is equal to -1, okay? That's the main thing you have to remember. I squared is equal to -1, okay? If you see a -1 pop up, then make it, if you see an I squared pop up, make it a -1, okay? So here we go. First one, part A. -3i minus 5i. I just kind of fixed the plus minus there. And -3i minus 5i is -8i. And you're done. Nothing there says I squared, so you don't have to switch anything. Okay? So there'll be some questions like that where there's no I squared to worry about. You just got to combine stuff. That's fine. That's great. But then there's going to be some questions where you're going to have to multiply. Okay? So we're going to have to send this over. So for part B, I'm going to get 18i squared minus 12i. Well, we know that I squared is -1, right? So that's 18 times -1 minus 12i. And 18 times -1 is a -18, right? And here is your answer. So good question. Should I combine? Yeah. No, because they're not like, right? These I could do because notice they both had i's in them, right? But the other ones do not. So remember, it's just like your x variables and stuff like that. All right, last two questions. I'll give you a little bit of time to draw this out. The instruction is going to be a little weird, so just bear with me. But go ahead and write it out. Okay, let me just pause this for about a minute while you guys draw this. So I just want to remind you guys that a complex number can be written as a point. Okay, it can be rewritten as a point. Okay, whatever b is, if b is negative, then make it minus. If b is positive, make it plus. Okay, and it can also go backwards. If you have a point, you can rewrite it as a complex number. Okay, so let's look at part A. What is the coordinate point for part A? Not complex number. If you just tell me what the point is for part A, what's the coordinate?
4, 2, 4.
All right, 4, 2. Now that's not the answer that I want, but that's going to get me to the answer that I want. Because if the point is 4, 2, then how do I write it as a complex number? There you go. And that's it. You're done. 4 plus 2i. Now for part B, I want to graph it on that coordinate plane, okay? How can I make part B into a point? How do I write it? All right, negative 3 comma 2. So now let me go to my graph and put a point right there, and I'm done. Okay? Yeah, it's pretty simple. It looks like it should be complicated. Like I told the kids the other day in 6th period, I said, it's funny they call them complex numbers, but they're actually easier than normal numbers. So not much complex about it. At least not yet. They get a lot more interesting once you start doing higher level math. But for now, they're not too bad. So, all right, there we go.